Morning, everyone. Good to be with you. Just going to do a little bit introduction to what we're talking about today. And my first question to everyone is, who likes McDonald's? Anyone? Yeah, a few hands. People like McDonald's? Right. If I gave you £10 and said, go to McDonald's, have what you want, what would you order? Anyone got a favourite McDonald's that they would go for? Anyone willing to admit? Quarter pounder with cheese. Nice. Okay. Any advance on a quarter pounder with cheese? Some chips, yeah. Make it into a meal. You've got enough, you can do that. Chicken nuggets, over down here. Okay, you could get, what can we click on? Or Big Mac meal. Large Big Mac meal, you can get that. You can have an apple pie to go with it. You can even have a bit of barbecue sauce. Get all that, £10. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Okay, the question now becomes, it's not just you have to buy for. Still only got £10, but you have to buy for you and a friend. Anyone got any ideas what they would do now? How would we go about that? Get a set portion of chips each. You can get more than a portion of chips each. Sorry. You could get 2 Happy Meals. Yeah? You can have one of those each. Yeah? 2 Happy Meals, right? You got enough change. Apple pie to share. The apple pie is key. Okay? You'd have the toy to play with. You could just get some stuff to share, right? You could get the Big Mac meal we had before and just share it out. Okay. What about if you had 5 friends? You and 4 others. Now you've got to feed them. Still only got £10. What are we thinking now? I mean, you could share out what we've got here again. You could afford to have 5 hamburgers, 1 each, and then you would also have enough apple pie to share. You wouldn't get much apple pie at this point. There are 5 of you. But you could do that. You share it out. Okay. It's getting harder. That was 5 people. What if we had to feed 100 people? Got £10. You're going to McDonald's. What do we do? Lots of chips. Yeah, that's what I said. Get lots of chips. Give people a chip or 2 each. You wouldn't get too many. Okay, this is getting more difficult. What if we had 1,000 people? We're trying to do it. What do we think? I think the same principle applies, but this time you might get a chip each. Just 1 chip. We're not getting very far with this. Okay, you can see where this is going. What if there were 5,000 people? What then? I think the principle applies. We might get a bit of a chip. Okay, it's not going to be very satisfying. It's not going to be quite there. But feeding 5,000 people was something that Jesus faced one day, and that's what we're going to hear about in our Bible reading. So we'll have that now.
The reading this morning is from John chapter 6, reading the first 13 verses. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. That is, the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he had already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each one of us to have a bite. Another of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will that go among so many?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, about 5,000 of them. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they'd all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. This is the word of the Lord.
Okay, so we know it's a familiar story. Jesus, he's been teaching some people. They were out in the wilderness. They didn't have anywhere to go for food. There were 5,000 men. There were women and children as well, so there's more than 5,000 people there. And he says to Philip, let's feed them. And Philip says, what? How are we going to do that? And so they try and find a solution. The solution they come up with is a packed lunch. I've got my packed lunch here. I've got 5 loaves and 2 tins of tuna, because carrying fish around is much more difficult. 5 bread loaves, and they've got 5,000 people to feed. How far do you think this is going to go? Do we think we're going to get very far trying to feed 5,000 people? Do you think we'd get very far trying to feed the people in this room with 5 loaves and 2 tins of tuna? I mean, we might all get a mouthful. Do you think if we were hungry at the end of a long day, we'd have enough? Do you think we'd be okay? We'd get away with that? We'd just share it around, What do you think? At the end of a long day, how many would you like a roll? 2 rolls? 2 rolls. Okay, we're down to 3 rolls left for the rest of us. Anyone else? Anyone want to jump in quickly while we're trying to work it out? I've still got 3 rolls and 2 tins of tuna. Anyone want to jump in? You look hungry. 3 rolls? You can have the rest of the rolls. Yeah, here we go. So we're down. We've just got 2 tins of tuna for the rest of us. It's not going to go well. We're not going to manage it. But Jesus, he managed it. He does. He hands them out. They blesses it. They all have enough. All of them. Thousands of them. They all have enough. Jesus fed 50, 100 times as many people as are here with something a bit like this. And when they were done, they had enough that they could fill some baskets with the pieces that were left over. They ended up with more than they started with. Right? That's pretty impressive. And it wasn't a trick, right? It's not everyone that had the food with them, really, and they were just pretending they didn't, and they all got their own stuff out. It wasn't a trick. They didn't go and find all the bread. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that Jesus did to show that he is God, right? Because no one can do that unless they're God, right? It's not possible. It's not part of what can be done. It's not a normal thing that anyone else can do. I can't do it. I've got this food. I can't feed you all with it. I'm really sorry. It's not going to happen. It's not possible. But God can do it. Jesus is showing that he is God. It's really, really exciting. Jesus is proving that he can do things that no one else can do. Okay, that was what happened. A bit later on, something else happens. Right, we're going to have a bit of a quiz. What's that? Everyone got this waiting for them at home later on? Got a roast dinner, okay? Item number 1. Want to tell me what these things have in common? Roast dinner, pizza, right? Anyone fancy a pizza? It's good. Yeah, nodding faces over here. I like to see that. Okay. What about a burger? Okay, I like a burger. Burgers are always good. And I know this is a favourite for everyone, right? A chip butty, right? Anyone fancy a chip butty? Oh, yeah. Right. What do all these things have in common? All these foods, right? Don't just tell me they're foods. That's not helpful. What do they all have in common? Bread! Thank you. The roast is a little bit hard, but there is bread sauce on there. I did make sure I found a picture with bread sauce on. Okay? They've all got bread. Bread is an important part of the things we eat. It's an important part of the diets that we have. And that was true in Jesus' time as well. People ate bread every day. It was part of what they did. And when we eat bread, do we get hungry again? Right? Or do we just eat bread once and we're happy forever? No. Right. We can't do that. It's not the way it works. Right? Do you think the people that Jesus fed with the miracle got hungry again? They ate some bread. Do you think they got hungry again? I think they probably did, right? But Jesus says something a bit later on to his disciples. He says, I'm the bread of life. He says, bread that can feed our hunger. He goes on, he says, whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever comes to me will never be thirsty. Right? Jesus says, you eat bread all the time. You know that when you eat bread, right, you get hungry again. You know when you drink water, you get thirsty again, right? That's the way the world works. But Jesus says, no, I'm the bread of life. I can feed you. I can satisfy you in such a way that you don't get hungry ever again, and you don't get thirsty ever again. If we go to him, he can feed us in a way where it doesn't happen that way. Because he's not talking about the physical feeding, right? It doesn't mean that Christians don't have to eat because they don't get hungry. That's not what Jesus is saying. But he's saying a spiritual way. In a spiritual way, he can meet all of our needs so we're not hungry. Jesus says he's the bread of life, and he can feed us in more ways than just food, right? More ways he can do that. So, Jesus says, I'm the bread of life. So what do we think that person's feeling? Sad, I heard someone say, right? And it's sad, lonely. They're not very happy. But if they're sad and lonely, Jesus says, I can satisfy that hunger you've got for a friend, for happiness, for some comfort. Jesus says, I'm the bread of life, right? I can help you in that situation. He promises he can be closer to a friend to you than any friend could ever be. He can comfort you in a way that no one else ever could. He can satisfy you in a way that no one could. And you never be hungry for those things again. That's what Jesus offers to you. Okay, what about this person? How do you think they're feeling? Oh, I heard lots of things, but I didn't actually catch the word anyone said. Anxious. That's a good one. I went for worried in my notes, but anxious is just as good. Right, they're worried. They're hungry for peace. You know, when you're anxious and you want comfort, you want to be at peace. Right? Well, that's what Jesus says. He says, I'm the bread of life. I can help you in that situation. You're hungry for peace, for comfort. Well, he promises that he can help us with that in a way that no one else can. He can bring us a peace that no one else can. So we never have to hunger for that again. Okay, what about that person? How do we think they're feeling? Accused. I hear someone say accused. Yeah, they're being accused. They're being accused because they're guilty, right? They're feeling guilty and they're hungry for forgiveness, right? They need some forgiveness because when you feel guilty, you feel it inside, don't you? And Jesus says, well, I'm the bread of life. I can offer you forgiveness. I can forgive anything and everything you've done. So you don't have to be hungry for forgiveness again. You don't have to feel that guilt anymore. I can forgive you. That's what Jesus came to do. He came so that we could be forgiven. He came so that he could take our place. He could take that guilt that we feel and satisfy that hunger we have for that relationship we can have with God. Whatever we're hungry for, Jesus is the bread. He says, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me, there's another one there. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever comes to me will never go thirsty. That's what Jesus says. Whoever believes in me will never go thirsty. If we come to Jesus, he can satisfy those things that we need, right? And we know he can because he's proved it to us by doing things that only God can do, like feeding 5,000 people with a miracle in a way that no one else can. Whatever we're hungry for, because we all have things that we need and we feel hungry for, whether that's a friendship or relationship, whether that's that peace and recognition, whether that's forgiveness, whatever we're hungering for, whatever needs that we have that we can't seem to satisfy anywhere else, well, Jesus says, come to me and I can help you with that. I can feed that hunger and satisfy you in a way that you can so that you'll never be hungry again. Jesus offers that to us. He says, that's what I can do. Come to me, and I'll fill you up, whatever it is, whatever it might be that you need, that you're hungering for. Jesus can offer that to you because he's the bread of life. He's the bread of life that we can feed on. We can feed on him when we're hungry, and we can trust that we'll do that forever because that's the promise that he makes. Isn't that good news? Isn't that a great thing to trust in? Thank you very much.